Welcome into the first episode of Call Me John. My name's Jon Zaghloul, our Communications Manager. I am joined today by the 60th Mayor of Aurora, Mayor John Laesch. Mayor, it's great to have you here on this new program.
Thanks, John. Good to be here, and you can just call me John. I typically don't go by the mayor title.
Great to have you here on this new program, which will be monthly. We're going to sit down together and talk about the biggest things happening in Aurora. And John, this is going to be a great opportunity for you to speak more to the community about what's taking place.
Sure. When we first talked about this show, today's show is going to be introductory, so people can get a little glimpse into my background, how I got here. But also the purpose is to make sure that we have a way to communicate with the public what's going on in City Hall. We're talking currently about data center policies, ethics ordinances, how do we address speeding or traffic in your neighborhood. And this is going to be a way to communicate with the public along those lines as things continue to evolve. So while this is introductory, we're expecting this to be a lot more over the years.
I think a lot of people are going to be tuning in to want to hear what you have to say, especially on those topics moving forward. As you said correctly, we're starting today with more of an introduction. So let's get into that a little bit here, because I think a lot of people want to know more about your background and who you are. You grew up in Liberia, so tell me about how that experience shaped you as a young child.
It is true. I have probably more interesting background than a lot of people. I grew up in Monrovia, Liberia, West Africa. My parents were Lutheran missionaries with Lutheran Bible translators, which was actually stationed right here in Aurora, right next to the Aurora Pancake House on Lake Street. And growing up in the jungle, we literally had a 300-mile trip into the jungle over laterite or gravel roads. Often they were potholed with heavy rains because Liberia is right along the equator and has a rainy season and a dry season. It's a dense jungle, similar to the Amazon jungle. And we would be in the jungle for probably 6 to 9 months at a time. We'd fly in or take a Peugeot station wagon, be a long ride for a young child. But I had the experience of hunting and fishing, being homeschooled. So a lot of very unique parts of my life, and in fact, even a lot of my connection to nature and environmentalism. We had this house out in the middle of jungle that was literally powered by 2 solar panels, and that was back in the 1970s. So it always blew my mind how this technology existed almost 50 years ago, and it still isn't mainstream in the United States of America.
How did that experience, growing up in that way, shape your political ambitions and your political career as it is today?
I think it probably shaped me more of who I am as far as being a humanitarian and wanting to see government work for the people. I would say that it didn't really have a lot to do with shaping my political career so much as my time in the U.S. military did. I served as an intelligence analyst in the Middle East from 1996 to 1999. And what really propelled me into the political world was the Iraq War, which is very similar to what's happening in Iran. I knew, having studied the countries of Iraq and Iran, that they did not have weapons of mass destruction back in the last Gulf War, where we invaded Iraq, even though we were attacked by Afghanistan and Osama bin Laden. So I first went to try and get back in the intelligence field, and my friends who had transitioned to other government agencies told me that it was not bad intelligence, it was bad government, and that I should work on the political side. So shortly after college, I started protesting the Iraq War on the college campuses, and then became politically involved, working first for presidential candidate Dennis Kucinich, later John Kerry, and trying to have my voice heard as a former intelligence analyst who understood the region very well. I wanted to inject that experience into the political discourse.
So you worked on the background for a number of campaigns following your time in the Navy. What propelled you to be front of camera, per se, and run for office?
Sure. I think I just said it was the Iraq War. I mean, I started working out for some people, and then when my younger brother got called up to go serve in Iraq and did several tours over there and came back as a disabled veteran. But on his first trip over there, he had asked if I would move home and run for U.S. Congress. So I did, and really learned the ropes of how to get on the ballot, how to go do retail politics, and how to talk to people and build a campaign from the grassroots up. So my campaigns were not supported by the party apparatus, always a little bit of a rogue independent voice. and very grassroots style.
What did you learn most about yourself when you ran for U.S. Congress, and how did that shape who you are now as Aurora's mayor?
Well, I mean, first of all, is the nuts and bolts of how to run campaigns. Learning that usually takes people a couple cycles. And then secondly, I realized that we have a broken political system that is built on large donations, largely coming from corporations, funding people's campaigns. And that's how they get on TV. That's why they send you endless pieces of mail. And so I wanted to work to build a grassroots system that was connected to the people, not connected to large political donors. And we were able to successfully do that in taking on the Speaker of the House. We got better numbers than anybody ever before. Came close to defeating Congressman Bill Foster, and that primary just fell a little bit short. In 2022, managed a campaign that was the biggest upset in Illinois politics. It was an upset victory here for the Alderman at large seat in 2023, and then also in 2025. I don't think anybody expected us to win. So we did. We've run a lot of successful now grassroots campaigns that are welded to being a voice for the people instead of those people who are trying to buy influence.
And it sounds to me like those first two campaigns that were unsuccessful really helped inform you and help you learn, so that way moving forward you were able to win some campaigns.
Sure. I always say if you're green, you're growing. Even in my new role as mayor, I'm constantly learning new things and trying to improve on my process and getting to work more together with the aldermen to achieve the goals and concerns that they have, as well as meeting the goals that the community has, and then trying to advance my own agenda, largely focused on better jobs and climate.
What do you attribute your rise in Aurora to? Because you lost those first two campaigns. Obviously, you then ran and successfully won on the East Aurora School Board, then alderman at large, and now mayor. What do you attribute that success to from 2015 to today?
Well, I've been working in Aurora politics for a while, and in the public on the East Aurora School Board. So I think one is just developing a reputation as an honest broker and someone who's not going to take money from political insiders who are trying to buy influence. And I think America as a whole is ready for that. So the Aurora voters said they were ready for ethical government, and we are working hard to try and transform City Hall to meet those needs.
Tell me about your time on the school board and how that informed your decision-making process today, too.
It's funny. The East Aurora School Board has a history of being a rocky place. I first read in the Beacon News that there was a conflict between two board members where they were exchanging yo mama insults. So I attended a board meeting. I watched it. There was again more of these very personal insults, and I thought that I could do a better job. So I knew how to get on the ballot from the previous two congressional races and successfully won that race. We made some positive changes. We got busing for the first time in the history of the district. We selected a long-term superintendent after a lot of turnover in a lot of senior level positions, and learned how to go through an executive hiring process, which has helped me out tremendously here in the city of Aurora as mayor. But the other key thing that I learned is that when we're focused on a goal, that we will function better as a board. And when we were focused on doing what's in the best interest of East Aurora students, I think that's when we as a board performed in unity and without conflict.
John Laesch here with us on the first episode of Call Me John, brought to you by the city of Aurora. And John, you brought up a great point, which is fixating on a goal. You're approaching your nearly 1 year mark as mayor. Mm-hmm. What are some goals or priorities that you want to see get done as part of your administration?
Sure. So right now, the city is right now literally going through a process of a strategic plan and establishing goals for each and every department. When I first came into office, we learned quickly that there was a budget problem, and we probably should have pursued the goal-setting part a little sooner, but having to deal with the budget crisis, I think, was paramount. So once we got through that process, kind of rebooted here at the beginning of January of 2026, and are now on that goal of setting out a long-term and strategic vision of the city, and really look forward to sharing some of these goals with the public in the State of the City address on April 16th. That's going to be at Crimney Auditorium. And I think we've taken a lot of public input through public input meetings. We've been meeting with department heads and staff members about what they think needs to change behind the scenes. So in addition to goals, we're also refining a lot of processes and procedures and helping standardize things. Like I just left our goals meeting with the legal department. We want to have a standard contract instead of knee-jerk reacting every time an opportunity comes before us. So there'll be standard contracts for our agreements with any city vendors that go out in our RFPs. So people know what they're getting into coming into any effort making a decision about doing business with the city. None of this is sexy. It's not like ribbon cuttings, but it's necessary to having functional, efficient government.
How important would you say, too, is the public's feedback in informing those goals?
Well, it's good because I think it'll streamline things for the public too. For example, we have city buildings that are available for the community to rent out space. Well, we need to have a standard contract with them and a checklist of how to clean up the space afterwards. All this stuff needs to be standardized, so we're treating every applicant that wants to use that building fairly. So I think streamlining some of these processes is going to help the public, as well as, now we're off on contract language, but right, if we have a contract that's favorable to the city instead of one that came from the vendor, right, that works on a tax basis that we're looking out for the taxpayers.
And I know feedback in general is something that you ran on and you championed, and you
Sure.
did a great job campaigning of going door to door and talking to so many residents about what they wanted to see inside of City Hall. I'm curious, as now you are mayor, what were they telling you when you were going out door to door talking to residents about what they wanted to see from the city of Aurora?
So there's some big things that we've started to move through the process. I'll give an example of Factor 75. We're working with them to upgrade their ventilation system, but it really hasn't happened fast enough for the residents who are experiencing discomfort and some health issues from that building being in place. But one of my big things is being responsive to the community and trying to get answers. And I will admit that it's been a little bit of a struggle to do that now as one person when we have a staff of almost 1,200 people. Trying to change that as part of our culture is to be responsive for the public. There's other things like the traffic on Eola Road that we heard a lot about from the residents who live on that side of town. And it's going to take a while to find ways to slow down the traffic and make it a little bit safer roadway. Other than that, we are trying to be responsive and trying to sometimes push the go button a little bit if a development project is stalled because of some hang up in the building permits department. Try to have somebody in economic development iron out some of the differences. Sometimes it's a communication barrier, but there's a lot of that process and procedure that needs to be put in place instead of having a knee-jerk response to every emergency that comes up.
How important would you say responsiveness is when it comes to city government?
Responsiveness is very important. It does take time to fix longer term things like traffic signals that might take a few years to get through a process with the state of Illinois to put all the funding packages together. But the key is that, my hope is that everybody on the council, myself, city staff, all prioritize and know that we work for the residents of our city. We don't work for big developers anymore. We work for the residents, and we're putting them first.
When you say that, what does that mean to you as the mayor? I'm working for the residents. What do you think about when you hear yourself say that?
Well, it just means that all those things I heard while going door to door and campaigning, the things that we continue to hear coming from residents, that we're going to address their concerns and put their concerns first. A good example is the data center policy, trying to make sure that there's noise mitigation as part of our zoning ordinance going forward. This is something residents have said they wanted, that have expressed frustration with existing data centers, so we're trying to address that long term. So that is what it means to me. It's all very functional, but you want to make sure that city government and every level of government is working for the people.
John Laesch, still here with us on the very first episode of Call Me John. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Jon Zaghloul, our Communications Manager. We have the 60th Mayor of Aurora, John Laesch, here for a few more questions here on today's program. How bright do you see Aurora's future being?
Oh, very bright, yes. I'm very excited about having the helm of the city and being able to shift city government to make it more responsive to people. I think that we've had some early accomplishments that I'm excited about, and again, probably roll those out in the state of the city, and then start to chart a new course for the city. But acknowledge the work that the others have done, because of the previous three mayors have all put a significant amount of time and energy into our downtown. We're seeing it revived. I definitely want to make sure that success continues, and what we really want to do long term, sort of the North Star, is going to be economic development that's focused on living wage jobs, addressing the climate crisis head on through energy efficiency and alternative energy sources, and trying to build a strong local economy so everybody in the city has an opportunity to succeed.
I know you're only a year in, and there's a long way to go, of course, but what do you want to be remembered for as the mayor of Aurora?
Oh, that's a good question that I haven't thought about. I think you're going to see the word effective, efficient, thoughtful, and stable. Those are the qualities, and honest and fair, I think, are the qualities we want to see as what I'm remembered for. There's another part of this is you cannot predict what is going to happen, right? We've had student walkouts. We've had rallies in front of City Hall here, probably more than others. And so you don't know, right? The Henry Pratt shooting was something that defined the previous administration and how they adjusted public safety to respond to that. We don't know what is going to come at us. We could not have predicted the heavy presence of ice that we experienced a few months ago. So it's going to have to be adaptable, and then making sure that we have a communication process to let the public know what's going on, which is part of what we're doing here today.
What's it mean to you to be the mayor of Aurora? When you think of yourself as mayor, what's that mean to you internally?
I think the one thing I think of is it's a huge responsibility. The first couple of days in this job, and even through the transition, I realized just how big of a job and how important it is. And so, being able to shoulder that responsibility, build a team around me that's committed to the same values and the same responsiveness to the public and the same people-oriented government, I think, in getting everybody to understand that and communicate those values and that mission forward, I think is significant. But I think most of the people that are working here also feel that level of responsibility of serving the public and putting out an A+ performance every day they come to work.
Can you explain to people who are watching or listening what your day-to-day looks like? Because I have to say,
Sure.
You haven't made it inside of City Hall until you get a patented midnight email from John Laesch. So,
Yep.
So what's your day-to-day look like, and how do you manage the workload of being the mayor of Aurora?
Well, first of all, again, I want to say that it's not just me. We have an excellent staff here, and everybody's working hard. I do the day-to-day work really is I bounce between my office conference table and a conference room that's literally adjacent to it, and with other senior staff members taking meetings, and then bouncing between the two, pretty much between 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. With a few events or outside meetings, but most of it happens here on the third floor. After that, there's typically a meeting or public event between 5 and 8 p.m. And then actually the real work happens between 8 p.m. and midnight. As you mentioned, there's a lot of late night emails and reading through all the emails and text messages and trying to start to get back to people. That usually happens after hours. So it's an intense workload. Again, I think as I am able to work better to communicate my vision to the rest of staff, I think some of that's going to start to dissipate. And a lot of the early meetings that happen were people just wanting to get to know me, people from the business community setting up meetings. So some of those are starting to die down, and we're starting to be less reactive and more proactive in putting our agenda together. But yeah, we do take time off, but there's a lot of work, and definitely a lot of work on the weekends as well, trying to make sure that we're still out in the public communicating what's going on in City Hall.
And I think that goes back to the responsiveness piece, though. The fact that you want to respond to everybody who sends you an email, sends you a text message. You take as many meetings as you can to be sure that you communicate your vision from the mayor's seat. I think that's really important, and that's something people have to understand about your role.
Sure. And I'll say this, that really the first couple days after winning the election, in the first month or two in office, because of the focus and the newness, we may not have gotten back to somebody. So if you're still waiting for a meeting out there, you can certainly send me another message, and we'll try to get you on the calendar.
And John, last question here today as we wrap up the first episode of Call Me John. What's one of the funnier moments that you've been a part of as mayor so far?
I might have to get back to you with that in the second episode, but I do try and have fun. Perhaps a little too lighthearted at times, and joking around, and do my best at City Council. But you got to find something to get you through the day, and humor is often my go-to.
Well, we all know that, and we appreciate it.
Sure.
And we appreciate you and everybody for tuning in to the first episode of Call Me John. Again, join us each month as we sit down together, talk about the biggest things going on within the city of Aurora. Thank you all for watching.
I'll bring more jokes next time.
More jokes and more fun from the mayor of Aurora, John Laesch. John, thank you so much. Episode 1 of the books. So long. We'll see you next time.